I am known as Grace Holloway. For 16 years, I have served as a school counselor. For many of those years, I held the conviction that my role was to guide students in rediscovering their equilibrium, returning to the familiar rhythm of life, returning to a state of operation, until I encountered a boy who was reluctant to return, and a father who resisted the passage of time, because to move ahead was to let go of the past. It commenced as many occurrences unfold in my office, subtly, accompanied by the rustle of paperwork. Calder Caleb, the document declared. 17 years of age. Joined the team 6 months ago. Father James Calder. Mother passed away. A teacher's note lingered in the margin. Exceptionally astute. Demonstrates reading proficiency beyond the expected grade level. Infrequently engages in conversation. No behavioral issues, however, entirely withdrawn. I placed the form aside and gazed out the window. September had arrived. The leaves were still green, yet the mornings whispered of anticipation. He entered the room in the midst of third period, shoulders drawn inward, hoodie partially fastened. His eyes bore the weight of weariness, but not from a shortage of rest. Weary, as one often becomes when hope for enduring goodness has faded into the shadows. I beckoned him to take a seat. You're Caleb, aren't you? He inclined his head in acknowledgement. I lingered in anticipation. In the realm of counseling, the essence lies not in being the first to speak. It revolves around creating a sanctuary for thoughts and emotions, allowing silence to fulfill its purpose, allowing the fissures to reveal themselves. At last he muttered, I don't need this. My teachers seem to believe I'm a bit too reserved. Is that what you believe? He gave a slight shrug. I hardly think at all. I observed the lack of elevation. There is no opposition, only void. He was resolute in his desire for independence. He was reluctant to embrace the notion of feeling better. He simply wished to remain untouched by emotion. He returned. It wasn't due to my invitation, but rather because he lingered in the hallway, momentarily halting at my door. I extended an invitation for him to take a seat. Not a single word escaped his lips. I settled down, retrieved a copy of Slaughterhouse-Five, and began to immerse myself in its pages. Vonnegut, I remarked, making an effort to keep my enthusiasm in check. Are you a fan of absurdism? I appreciate that there are no victors, he responded. It marked the very first complete sentence he had offered me. 7 days passed, and then an email arrived in my inbox. Esteemed M. Holloway, I would appreciate the opportunity to meet and explore ways in which I can enhance my support for Caleb at home. I find myself uncertain about what is effective and what is not these days. James Calder. The signature exuded a sense of formality, but something about the way he phrased it felt weary. A session has been arranged for after school. Friday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He made his entrance punctually. James Calder bore the unmistakable air of a man who once reveled in the art of reciting poetry, yet had long since abandoned that cherished practice. Lofty, weathered, fingers tucked away in the comforting embrace of fabric, eyes reminiscent of the wind following a storm, cleansed yet still holding the remnants of what has transpired. Ms. Holloway, he uttered. I appreciate it. I extended an invitation for tea. He refused. He claimed he couldn't consume anything without the need to pace. Thus, I allowed him to wander restlessly. I have delved into every tome on grief, he remarked. I spoke with the counselors, educational psychologists. I even attempted to compose letters to him. He halted, casting a look in my direction. A father's words are unnecessary for him. He requires a presence that is not mine. What is it that you require? I inquired. He cast his gaze upon me then, truly observed. I must learn to release the sense of inadequacy that washes over me each morning as I prepare breakfast. The meeting was intended to conclude within a span of 30 minutes. The duration extended to 2 hours. Our conversation drifted to Caleb. Then there was his wife Samantha. Next, let us delve into the concept of guilt. Next, let us ponder silence. Then there's the way the world anticipates that those in mourning will simply advance, as if time were an escalator and remaining stationary equated to being abandoned. At a certain moment he remarked, "You appear to be a person who comprehends the essence of silence." A gentle laugh escaped my lips. "That is the task at hand." "No," he said, voice low. "That isn't a talent. It's a burden you bear." A subtle change rippled through the atmosphere of the room. Not a mere flirtation. Not attraction. Acknowledgement. He saw me, not as a counselor, not as a woman behind a desk, but as someone who also carried a story no one asked about. As he departed, he rested his hand on the doorframe, glancing back one last time. Have you ever found yourself speaking to someone simply to articulate your thoughts to a listener who won't attempt to resolve anything? I inclined my head in acknowledgement, more frequently than I care to acknowledge. Could you be that person for me? If only for a moment? Not in the role of Caleb's counselor, merely as one who understands. I ought to have declined. I ought to have taken a different path. He was reminded of the boundaries. Yet I found myself murmuring, I think I already am. That evening, I lingered in my office long after the sun had set. I revisited Caleb's file. Next came James's email. Then nothing. Just sat in silence, remembering the way he looked when he said, "You carry silence like someone who's learned not to drop it." He was the father of the student. I served as the school counselor. We had not yet crossed a line. Not at this moment. Yet I was aware beneath the surface. We had both discovered the boundary and started to make my way toward it. In unison. No affair took place. Do not make contact. There was no kiss. No messages shall be sent after the stroke of midnight. Yet a profound change stirred within me the instant James Calder inquired if he could return, not in the role of Caleb's father, but as his true self. And I replied in the affirmative. A subtle rhythm emerged. Every Thursday, right after the school day came to a close, James would make his way to my office. He always entered without a sound. He lingered in the doorway, an uncertain figure caught between the threshold and the unknown, as if questioning his right to enter. He would present a weary smile. I would acknowledge with a nod, and we would engage in conversation. Occasionally, reflections on sorrow emerge. Occasionally, one finds oneself pondering the intricacies of literature. There are moments when the silence stretches, an echo of absence that fills a home long after a loved one has departed. When he first presented the coffee, he offered an apology. I thought that if I'm taking up your time, I ought to provide some caffeine as a trade. I accepted the cup with a smile. He was unaware that I had been anticipating his visits far more than any departmental meeting, student evaluation, or leisurely evening with friends over wine. James regarded me not as a counselor would. He regarded me as if he were free from the burden of expectation. He posed inquiries that remained unvoiced by others. What occupies your time when you're away? What brings you a sense of security? Have you ever found yourself wishing you could take back the choice to be the one who listens more than she speaks? He addressed me as if I were a woman, not merely a character in a play. This does not serve as a function. And I began responding to him in ways that astonished even myself. On a quiet afternoon, I confessed, I believe I've become so accustomed to assisting others in navigating their suffering that I've lost the ability to articulate my own. His gaze remained unwavering. He merely stated, perhaps it's meant to remain nameless. Perhaps the intention is simply for you to be inquired about it. On a rainy Friday, we found ourselves exiting the building simultaneously. He graciously extended his offer to accompany me to my car. The gesture held no trace of romance. Yet there was an unmistakable quality to our pace, deliberate, unhurried, that felt distinctly different. He sheltered us beneath the canopy of his umbrella. Our shoulders brushed against each other, a fleeting connection in the crowded space. The wind howled around my coat, urging me to draw in a little tighter. We paused by my car, and I turned to express my gratitude to him. He remained still, did not retreat. They held my gaze for a moment that lingered just a heartbeat too long. "You don your strength as if it were a jacket that no longer fits," he remarked softly. "It remains suitable, yet just barely." I blinked. The rain whispered against the windshield, a soft, rhythmic breath of nature. "I'm not quite sure how to interpret that," I murmured. "That's not how it's meant to be," he responded. It was not merely a suggestion, merely a moment of reflection. He took a step back. The head inclined slightly. He strolled over to his car. In the following week, I found myself preening my hair in anticipation of his arrival. On that very Thursday, he arrived with a book in hand, A Grief Observed by Sis. Lewis. "It proved beneficial to me once," he remarked. "It may not be of assistance to you. Yet I thought if anyone could grasp its nuances it would be you." He had emphasized certain sections, margins adorned with script so precise it belied the claims of a man who professed to be shattered. I was never informed that grief could resemble fear so closely. I followed the words with my fingertip, unaware that I was holding my breath. "I once inscribed my thoughts in the margins of my books," I remarked. "What have you penned?" "Primarily inquiries," I murmured. "I have always struggled to find the right answers." He failed to appear the following week. No correspondence via email. There is no coffee. Silence lingers softly at my threshold. I sensed it deeply, in a manner I had not foreseen, as if a piece of my very essence had been snatched away, leaving me unaware of its absence until that moment. Upon his long-awaited return 2 weeks had passed. There was a noticeable change in his eyes. Weary, protective, as though he had ventured deep within his own soul, only to be confronted by a reflection he found unappealing. "I apologize," he remarked, taking a seat without hesitation. "You are not obligated to me in any way." He cast his gaze in my direction, extended, unambiguous. "I believe I do," he replied. That afternoon, the silence around Caleb lingered unaddressed. Grief remained unspoken between us. We engaged in a conversation about the books that remained unfinished in our lives, concerning the verses we crafted and discarded, reflecting on those instances in life when silence envelopes us in a cloak of safety, and when it descends upon us as a form of retribution. Just as he was about to depart, he paused and looked back at me. "Do you believe," he asked, "that one can remain faithful to someone from whom they've already withdrawn their innermost self?" The space seemed to shrink. "I believe individuals cling to their commitments long after they have ceased to be truthful with themselves," I replied. He advanced toward the door, then came to a halt. His hand rested upon the frame. His voice was but a whisper. "You have an uncanny ability to see into the hearts of others," he remarked. "When was the last time someone truly understood you?" That evening I returned home and found myself gazing into the bathroom mirror, attempted to perceive his perspective. Not the guidance counselor, not the woman who hears. Yet it is the one hidden beneath the jacket, the individual who had previously been inquired of. "What brings you a sense of safety?" and was unable to respond. I once held the conviction that infidelity began with a mere kiss, with a hand lingering for an extended moment, a door secured tight, a form was pressed against another. Yet I found myself mistaken. It began with my cautious glances down the hallway before making my way to the staff lounge. yearning for a glimpse of him. It began when I revisited his emails, treating them as if they were long-awaited letters arriving after years of anticipation. It began when I realized I no longer referred to divorced as a scar, but rather as a secret. James started to show up earlier. Rather than quietly entering my office at day's end, he would stroll in around midday, often bearing coffee, a book, or occasionally nothing at all. He perpetually lingered at the periphery of the room. He never took anything for granted. "Is it too soon?" he would inquire. "No," I would respond. Perfectly punctual. The reality was, I had ceased to regard him as Caleb's father, and I doubt he regarded me as Caleb's counselor. We had subtly transformed our roles. Absent of consent, devoid of any formalities, on a quiet afternoon, he presented a collection of poems by Mary Oliver. He opened it with great care, as if it were fragile and could shatter at any moment. "I believe this one may pique your interest," he remarked. "It brought to mind the way you settle into your chair, as if preparing for an unspoken anticipation." He turned the pages with a deliberate grace, discovered the one, gently pushed the book across the desk surface. I perused it at a leisurely pace. A person dear to me once presented me with a box brimming with shadows. Years passed before I realized that this too was a precious gift. As I glanced upward, I found him observing me, not with the gaze of a man admiring a woman, but rather with the intensity of one who witnesses a door creaking open, revealing a space they believed had been sealed off for eternity. On that particular day, I escorted him through the side hallway. We lingered by the vending machines, in that elusive space beyond the watchful gaze of the cameras. It wasn't as if we were engaged in any wrongdoing. Yet, there remains a lingering thought. He extended his hand to press a button. Overlooked. His knuckle grazed against my own. I remained unperturbed. He did not either. We lingered in silence for a brief moment. Not even a complete second. Not a single breath escaped. Yet I sensed it. The consciousness. A quiver just beneath the surface. Our hands remained untouched. Yet the depths of our beings intertwined in ways words could scarcely capture. He invited me to dinner. Not in a playful manner. Perhaps not in a manner that is overly assertive or definitive. He spoke as a solitary soul might, voicing his thoughts aloud, fearing that if he remained silent, the stillness would consume him whole. "There exists a location close to the river," he remarked. "Italian. Silence. I once shared moments with Samantha." In the past. I hesitated before giving my answer. Yet, I did not utter a refusal either. On the evening of the dinner, I lingered before the mirror, lost in thought for what felt like an eternity, longer than I have experienced in many years. I donned a modest dress, deep rich navy blue, nothing audacious, nothing that would raise any inquiries. Yet I adorned my lips with lipstick. At the threshold I paused, uncertainty gripping me, not due to any uncertainty I had regarding James. Yet, I found myself grappling with uncertainty about the person I was evolving into in his presence. He propped the door ajar, inviting all who passed to enter. I found my chair unpulled, failed to acknowledge my dress. Rather, he inquired about the nature of my day. Hurt. He paused only to pose follow-up questions, not out of a desire to impress me, but from a genuine concern for my thoughts. Caleb was left unspoken between us, or perhaps an institution of learning, or anything that maintained a certain distance between us. Our conversation meandered through the realm of music and cherished aromas. He recounted the aroma of parchment and pipe tobacco that lingered in his grandfather's study. I shared with him the scent of fresh pencil shavings, fresh volumes, the serene excitement of a blank notebook waiting to be filled. Then he spoke. "There's a subtle yearning within you, Grace. Not for the sake of love, not even for a mere touch, to achieve recognition. Following our meal, we strolled alongside the water's edge. The wind playfully pulled at my sleeves. He extended his scarf to me. I declined, yet he came to a halt. "I have something to express," he remarked, "and I wish for you to remain silent. Simply listen to it." I inclined my head in agreement. "You occupy my thoughts," he murmured, not in an inappropriate manner, not as if a man has cast aside his sorrow, yet akin to an individual pondering the sensation of being truly noticed by you beyond this fleeting instant. I held my breath. He then proceeded to add, "I have not laid a finger on you. I shall not. Yet I find myself questioning how much longer I can endure this separation without breaking the stillness." Upon returning home, I found myself seated on my bed, enveloped in darkness. Silence reigns. There is no wine, only I, and the recollection of a man's voice that, though it had never brushed against my skin, had penetrated deeper than anyone had in years. I cast my gaze upon my left hand. The absence of a wedding ring was palpable. It had been nearly 3 years since the last occurrence. Yet even so, for the first time I sensed that I was shedding something. It is not a ring, a threshold, a veil, an armor I had long since forgotten I wore. Our lips had yet to meet. We had not made contact. Yet I had allowed him to step into the chapters of a book I had kept shut for far too long. And even more troubling, I yearned for him to continue his reading journey. Nearly 4 months had passed since James Calder first appeared in my doorway. From the moment he took his seat opposite me, his words flowed not as a father, nor as a widower, but as if he were gently unwinding, revealing himself piece by piece. For months. Do not make contact. There are no statements to be made. There are no guarantees. Yet an intimacy had blossomed in the air. A cadence. A connection we chose not to recognize, yet it remains unbroken. The heart of winter had settled in. The promise of a school holiday loomed on the horizon. 2 glorious weeks of freedom awaited. The structure stood vacant. The atmosphere hung in a quiet suspension. That afternoon I lingered, immersed in the task of catching up on documentation. As I shut my laptop, a well-known voice pierced the stillness. "You consistently depart last." I raised my gaze. James lingered at the threshold, cradling 2 steaming coffee cups in his hands. "I wasn't certain I'd find you," he remarked. "You consistently do." He smiled, a grin broader than ever before. "My purpose here isn't related to Caleb," he stated. "I understand," I responded. "You ceased to be merely a parent long ago." He paused for a moment, then inquired, "Might you entertain the idea of visiting sometime? I'm not referring to anything official. There is no dinner table. There's no need to feel any pressure. Only books, tea, silence, if that is your only desire." I hesitated, not due to any uncertainty on my part. Yet, deep down, I was aware that my answer would inevitably be affirmative. "Indeed," I replied. "I would indeed." His home sat quietly at the town's edge, unassuming, stone-framed, with ivy winding up the porch railing, a testament to memories that lingered stubbornly. Within those walls it was precisely as I had envisioned. Cozy, subtle, comfortably worn. A flickering flame dances in the hearth. A weathered piano rests by the window. Bookshelves adorned with volumes, their spines gently worn from countless readings over the years. Walls devoid of pictures. Only a solitary frame perched on the mantel, James, his son Caleb, and a woman whose eyes reflected the essence of both. "Samantha," he remarked, his gaze locking onto mine as I was caught in the act of observing. Her heart danced to the verses of Wallace Stevens, sweetened by honey swirling in her tea. "She remains within these walls," I declared. "She will forever remain." He guided me through a slender corridor into what was once her sanctuary of books. Bookshelves that stretched from the floor to the ceiling. A chair for reading, nestled by the window, a neatly arranged stack of notebooks, elegantly bound with a ribbon. I extended my hand toward a tome Virginia Woolf's, The Waves. With a gentle motion I flipped it open. In the margins there lay handwriting. Exact. Delicate. Recognizable. My breath hitched. What could it be? He inquired. I angled the book in his direction. There, inscribed in the upper corner, was my name. Grace H. Illuminating Perspective, page 113. My gaze was fixed upon him. She perused my manuscript. James grasped the book from my hand and flipped it open to the page I had marked. Peruse. At that moment his gaze met mine. Long before our paths crossed, you had already made your presence felt within the walls of our home. That evening we chose not to settle onto the couch. We settled onto the floor of the library, our legs crossed amidst a tapestry of scattered books. He recounted the first year devoid of Samantha. In the stillness of the night, the sudden shatter of dishes echoes through the silence, a jarring reminder of fragility and the unexpected. Each fragment tells a story, a moment interrupted, resonating in the darkness. Caleb once shouted at him, "She's not coming back, Dad. Why do you still wait at the window?" He murmured, "Because I wasn't waiting for her." I found myself in a state of longing, anticipating the return of that piece of my soul that had departed alongside her. I remained silent. I gently rested my hand on the floor that lay between us, withheld from extending a hand toward him, merely grounding myself. His gaze fell to my hand, then elevated. "If I touch you," he murmured, "I can't promise I'll know how to stop." "I'm uncertain if I desire you to," I murmured. Yet we did not. We remained at a distance, did not lean in. We refrained from allowing our bodies to express what our lips had nearly ventured to utter. The silence spoke volumes. That night the snow fell gently. He escorted me to my vehicle. Without an umbrella, a delicate veil of white descends, creating a gentle divide between us. Just as I was about to turn the handle, he remarked, "I interpret the intricacies of human nature as my profession. However, you're the very first individual I wish to emphasize." I blinked as the snowflakes danced around me. "What is the reason?" "For you do not seek to be noticed," he remarked. "Yet you shatter in the shadows." Upon our return, we resumed the familiar rhythms of our daily lives. Scholars clad in hooded garments, educators adorned in cardigans, the familiar grievances regarding timetables and coffee dispensers. Yet a transformation had taken root within me. I remained Grace Holloway, remains the advisor, yet the unwavering voice amidst turmoil. Yet, amidst the tea and the stillness, I recalled the sensation of being addressed as if I were more than merely reliable. I had once more embraced my identity as a woman, more than merely a position. No affair took place. There was no evening when our fingers quivered beneath the entwined fabric of the bedclothes. There are no hushed vows exchanged in the dim light of motel rooms. There shall be no clandestine meetings. Yet, if betrayal is gauged by the presence you offer, by the emotional closeness you relinquish softly, bit by bit, then indeed the answer is yes. Long ago I had already crossed the line. Not in the direction of James Calder's body, yet in the direction of his quietude. In that process I had relinquished fragments of my being that would forever remain lost to me. The holidays have come and gone. The chill of winter intensified. And I embarked on a path that defied all expectations. I have composed my resignation letter. No one inquired as to the reason. However, the principal took me aside following the weekly meeting. "You are the backbone of this establishment," he remarked. "At times spines may fracture," I responded. "At times they must yield before shattering completely." Caleb Calder entered once more. This is not intended for counseling purposes. Without a prior arrangement, he entered, let his bag fall to the ground, and settled into his seat as if he had finally found his moment. "I am aware that you converse with my father," he remarked. I lingered in anticipation. "Everything will be fine." He offers a more frequent smile. "That is the sole focus of my concern." And then softly, as if a son burdened by too much weight, "It has been quite a while since he was last embraced." It seems he required a presence that could recognize his struggles without diminishing his worth. I blinked. Caleb rose to his feet. "I appreciate it," he remarked, "to witness the presence of us both." Once he departed, I collected my belongings. Literature, observations, images capturing the essence of former students, a plant I had miraculously nurtured for 8 long years, and one folder labeled Calder Caleb. I chose not to discard it. I too let it slip away. It found its resting place on the highest shelf of the filing cabinet, shut the drawer with a soft click, and extinguished the lights. A week following my final day, a package arrived for me, enveloped in a layer of brown paper. There is no return address provided. Within lay a tattered, cloth-bound tome, the collected poems of Emily Dickinson. I unsealed it. The spine groaned as if stirring from a deep slumber. Within the inner cover, a note penned by hand. "Dear Grace, you once expressed a sentiment of being a bookshelf, constantly drawn upon by others, yet never receiving anything back in return. Your generosity has left me speechless, unable to find the words to express my gratitude for all that you have given me. Yet, I hold on to the hope that this will occupy one vacant corner. You were never meant to remain hidden beneath the earth. G." The mark was placed on page 93. I faced it, quaking with apprehension. Hope is a creature adorned with feathers, that rests within the spirit, and hums the melody devoid of lyrics, continues on without pause forever. I gently shut the book, cradling it against my heart. He had not laid a finger on me, yet he had given me something I believed was gone forever: the desire to be experienced, the allowance to experience emotions once more. That evening I strolled along the river, the very one where we shared a meal, where snow once tangled in my scarf and his voice once seeped into my very being. No message was found. No meeting has been scheduled. No man stands beneath a lamppost, reminiscent of a moment plucked from the pages of a romance novel. Yet I ventured forth regardless, not due to any necessity for his presence. Yet there was a subtle change within me, a shift in my very essence. I had ceased my restless wandering through the corridors, anticipating the moment when someone would seek my presence. I found myself stepping inward. James Calder did not come to my rescue. He did not cause the dissolution of my marriage. He failed to present me with a vision of what lay ahead. He neither embraced me nor shattered my spirit. He merely revealed to me what I had ceased to permit: to be inquired, to be heard, to be savored gently as one would a verse. You refrained from attempting to interpret. You simply allowed it to destroy you. I held the position of counselor. For years, I dedicated myself to creating a sanctuary for others, understanding the essence of suffering, structuring sorrow, classifying emotions as if they were tidy, organized entities. He lingered amidst the tumult. He allowed it to unfold naturally, and within that quietude, he unraveled each iteration of me that had slipped from memory. How to embrace femininity before she became a healer.